Good evening. Welcome to Poseidon Live. This is the 5th show. Today my guest is Cato's Speech, a YouTuber from Austria. I want to welcome in the chat Ludova, Cho Yun Pat, Pouro Tati, Ursula Martins, Blau Bayou, Max Strong, Goichat, Landon Good, Dusan Balint, Horus, James Key 3001, Rimon Ro.
Thus do always what you should.
Thank you all for joining tonight.
But in all moments, rise for good. Be among the heroes of men. You are called as one who stood.
In a moment, Cato's Speech will join us. During our show, if you want to send a message or a question and at the same time support my work, you can use Streamlabs. It uses PayPal and your message will appear live on the screen. Welcome Vale.
We will have so much.
Welcome Tony Curtis, George Satan Soros.
Believe me, I agree. You'll never get bored with winning. We never get bored.
So we are waiting for Cato to join our hangout. Welcome, Cato.
Ah, sorry, my mic was blocked. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, welcome, good evening. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. Just a little bit busy.
So I want to thank you very much for coming tonight and joining me. It is a great pleasure and an honor. I've been following your work for over a year now, since your previous channel.
Oh, so you got the second one already?
Yes. How many Catos have there been?
Actually, our YouTube channel is only 3, but I guess I ran through about 5 accounts by now.
And was this your choice, or did they force you?
A little bit of both. So they basically ended up deleting my channel every time around, and yeah, I was just like, there's really nothing that holds me back from coming back again. So that's what I did.
Yes. Well, actually, I when they deleted my first channel, that was over 1 year ago, I thought I wouldn't be able to make a new one. But then I noticed that most people go through this process, and so now this is my 4th channel in 1 year.
Wow. Yeah, that's an accomplishment.
Yes, many channels have fallen during this war.
Yeah, but I have to say, you are always very hands-on with your videos. I toned it down quite a lot since my first channel.
So, well, actually, I thought that my content is toned down. I try very hard to censor myself.
I know that feeling. And at the end of the day, they still tell you to hardcore.
Yes. I wonder how much we must tone down our content in order to be YouTube friendly.
To comply with YouTube and Twitter or other platforms, I guess we should just kill ourselves and be done with it if it comes to them. But a little bit of moderation isn't a bad thing.
Yes, I agree, and this is why I really try not to my content not to be extreme. I never I never have messages that are have something to do with violence or with racism or with extreme political opinions. Basically, I think myself as someone who is just trying to expose anti-white racism.
Yeah. As far as I know your channel and the ones before, it's essentially a platform to get the message out there, nothing more. And I guess that's really the best thing that you can do, especially on YouTube.
Yes, and I've especially on YouTube, I've noticed that during the past year, I think things have gotten worse regarding censorship.
Oh yes, they have. The limited states with videos, for example, and the shadow banning, that also has intensified as far as I can tell.
Yeah, limited state is something that it happened to me almost once a week. One video would be placed in limited state, and because I usually consider this as a warning, when they place a video in limited state, I immediately delete it. I don't.
That's not that much of a bad idea.
Yes, because I noticed that the first video that they placed in limited state, the views went to 0.
Yeah, that's the entire point.
Yeah, so
as soon as they do it, you might as well delete it, because it's, at least as long as you don't have people sharing it, it will get no views.
It won't get no views, and it's only something that they can use against you anytime in order to give you a strike.
Yes. I mean, it wasn't really much different before they had those measures. I remember with my first channel, I had some videos that had 500, 700,000 views, just edgy memes, nothing really deep. But it got out there and got a lot of views and subscribers in. And as soon as a certain point was reached where there was a lot of traffic, there was an immediate strike, and the traffic basically dropped to 0. And the shadow banning began right after that. It's always the first warning.
Yes, I've noticed that too, that some videos, as long as they don't get many views, they don't care. But if by chance a video gets some shares and gets noticed and the views start rising, they immediately intervene.
Yes. That's, as far as I can tell, the entire concept. They don't really care that much if you have immensely red-pilled content out there. As long as it's, I would say, as long as it has below 2,000 or 3,000 views, nobody cares. As soon as you reach 10,000 views, it gets critical. And if you get into the 10K region and beyond, that's mostly when the shadow banning and the limited state kicks in.
Now, I had an interesting experience with the shadow banning. I had a small video up that was only 1 minute, and it was a riot in South Africa.
Ah, yeah.
But it wasn't actually showing anything. So it was just showing a crowd screaming. And the police looking at them helpless. But I used some scary music as a background. The thumbnail was a little clickbait. The title was a little clickbait. And suddenly this video reached almost 500,000 views. And this happened just in 10 days. So during these 10 days, when suddenly this video jumped to almost 50,000 views per day, I noticed the shadow banning. Suddenly, the views disappeared, dropped for a couple of hours, and then they started again. So like someone froze the video, tried really hard to find something in it in order to take it down, but because the video had nothing, it was a stupid video that was showing nothing, they didn't have an excuse to delete it or to strike it or to put it in limited state, and so they released it, and as soon as they released it, the views jumped again up, and this was happening every day.
Interesting.
Every day, and I was watching and I was taking screenshots. So one day 50,000 views, the other day almost zero, and the next day again 50,000 views. Like if you have a break and you press the brake for a few hours and then you release it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I don't know if you had that experience with analytics, where it shows a big amount of views, but the video itself only has half of them, or that a lot of comments disappear. That is something that I have a lot lately. That people would write comments and I see them. I can even comment back and like them and everything, but they are not visible beneath the video. That's something that happens a lot to me lately.
That's something that I didn't know. I hear it for the first time. So everyone has a different experience, but I think the point is the same. Some algorithm out there is trying to suppress.
I would even go so far that they have different means of doing that. Some of it is completely automated, and especially in Germany or other European countries, they actually have people basically doing it as a job. They look for such videos, look for things that they can criticize or can use as an excuse to flag the videos and take them down. So it seems that it is a little bit more than just one mean that they use for this entire thing.
Yes, I recently saw somewhere on Twitter a trusted flagger from YouTube posted some statistics of how many millions of videos were flagged in a certain time period from bots. I think it was 6 million was from bots.
Of course.
Yes. I think 28 million was from users.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, and a couple of million, if I remember correctly, was from trusted flaggers, which is essentially ADL employees.
It's their personal little YouTube Stasi.
Yes, They seem to have their reach is everywhere, in YouTube and in Facebook, and probably in other platforms too, I guess.
Yeah, that's another interesting topic, how far they are actually connected. I mean, when you take a look at YouTube, it would be interesting to know how far they actually work with, let's say, Twitter or Facebook.
Oh, I'm sure they exchange data. I'm sure, and I think especially Facebook and Google, I think they are in, I'm sure they have a common database which they feed with data, which is accessible also by, not only by the ADL, probably by the NSA, CIA and Mossad too.
Yes, that would make sense.
Yes, because the combination of these two companies, their databases, I think it's the ultimate spy weapon for anything. And it would be foolish for the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, the Mossad not to try and get access to these databases. And I don't think that these companies, especially these two companies, would have any problem sharing our data with these specific secret services.
I remember during the Obama administration, there was a little time where Google and the US government had a little bit of a back and forth between each other because of accessing user data and other things from Google. So it seems that this has completely vanished during the last years. And I guess they are now just the best buddies.
Yes, it's a wonderful relationship in a wonderful world. I don't have to say anything negative about it, because I know that the trusted flaggers will listen to this. So yes, I totally agree. You guys are doing a terrific job. I support you.
Hey, when we're at it, we might as well put some private information in there. Social security numbers, where we live, our families. Huh? Don't you think?
I think they already got it. This,
in most cases, they definitely do.
Yes, and they, in some cases, they also have our DNA too, because it's interesting. You know, do you know the DNA company 23andMe?
Oh, yes.
You know what I'm going to say.
Oh, yeah. I will probably say the same. Go ahead.
I will say it because I support this, so I will say it in a very positive way. So this wonderful company is owned by a wonderful woman who is the ex-wife of one of the Google owners. Google is owned by two people, and YouTube is owned by Google. And so this woman owns 23andMe. Her sister is the CEO of YouTube. It's a very small world.
Yeah, interesting.
Interesting. So this family has Google, YouTube, 23andMe, so they can combine your searches, what you are searching for, and if you have an Android phone, your location, your messages, your phone calls, the videos that you are watching, the comments that you are making on them, and your DNA too. So I think it's perfect. They have everything.
Really beautiful.
it's exactly what George Orwell dreamed of.
I believe it's George Orwell on steroids, but but that's sincerely, if we would take George Orwell, put him here, and show him what we have today, he would be more horrified than when he thinks of his Stalinistic nightmare. I'm sure of that.
Yes, actually, yes, it's frightening. I think we are. We have passed the point of the novel 1984, and we are entering into the script of the movie The Matrix.
It doesn't take much anymore, yeah?
Yes, where we are actually being just used as batteries to fuel this giant machine that loves us and does this for our own good, of course.
Yes.
I'm not criticizing, I'm endorsing.
It's a completely symbiotic relationship. We love each other. We are good little atomized consumers, and they just want the best for us. That's how it is, right?
Yes. So, I've prepared a few subjects that I wanted to discuss with you.
Yes.
A few things that I think watching your videos are interesting to you, and they are also subjects that are interesting to me. So one of my favorite subjects are our good friends and allies, the skeptics.
Lovely people. Makes sense to bring.
I'm trying really hard to think before using each word, so I don't use the wrong word. Yes,
It's a good idea.
Yes.
I keep myself back as well, so don't worry.
So these lovely people which started a strange path about a year ago, when they exposed this bad girl, Rage After Storm.
Oh, yes. Yeah, horrible person. Really despicable views. Copy-pastes the Daily Stormer.
Did you follow this story from the beginning? Did you watch that lovely Warski show where they...
Oh, I actually had to catch up on all of that because I didn't follow Rage After Storm back then. I generally don't follow that many females on YouTube. There aren't that many that I view as high-quality content producers. And I guess I just saw a picture of her, this girl with a nose ring and problem glasses, and I was just like, no, I'm not even going to take a look at this. And yeah, then the skeptics started to fall in on themselves over this little video that she made, and there was this interesting Warski stream. Let's just say it escalated quickly.
Yes, this stream created months of entertainment and content for many channels. And I think we haven't seen the final chapters of this story, because our good friend Kraut, I'm sure he will return and he will give us interesting content again.
I'm afraid he will. And that in a completely serious note, I hope when he's done with that, because I actually feel a little bit for the guy. I just hope when he is through with it that he doesn't off himself, because he has this tendency of just completely shooting over the thing that he aims for. And if he comes back, I guess it will just happen the same way again.
Yes, it was today I saw on Twitter a tweet of Mr. Metacore. It was a long exchange of tweets with Braving Ruin, and between these tweets I saw some screenshots from some servers and crowd's name popping up, some threats about some lawsuits. So this is why I brought this up. I think he's doing something again, and probably soon we will hear from him again, so it will be interesting.
Oh, so you think he is now going after the big fish? A little bit of revenge against Metacore and his people?
I think that he's on a crusade during the last. He's on a crusade against anyone that
disagrees with him and ever criticizes him for anything.
Yes.
If it is just a joke or serious criticism, it doesn't really matter to the guy.
So I hope no one mentions to him that I mentioned him today.
Oh, hey, you can be sure he's going to watch this at some point. It's not as if... No, I would really say it is unlikely that he has anything else to do, so...
So now that since we are on the subject now of the skeptics, I'd like to hear your thoughts on about the king of the skeptics.
The soy father himself. Oh yeah, let's go there.
The liberalist president.
Yeah.
The half black, half English fighter.
He imagines himself to be. Yeah. Now he's an interesting figure, I have to say. I mean, I don't know how long his channel is actually around now. But I guess I stumbled over him about 4 years ago, as far as I can tell. And he was really one of the first guys that really started off this anti-feminist and anti-SJW stuff. He really made this his whole market scheme, I would say.
And I think he presented it successfully.
Yeah, he did. And it was really interesting because you could always tell when you watched his videos that, especially when he brought up politics or economical issues, that he wasn't really an expert, but he had a way of talking where he could convince people that he had a clue and that he had a strong opinion and that he was right. And for most people, that's enough. That's all they need. And yeah, that was really the main reason why he essentially was digging his own grave as soon as he started to really confront the alt-right, out of whatever reason he had for that.
This is something that I find strange. Why did he get into this fight with the alt-right? I never understood this.
As far as I can tell, only to get away from it. Because this is something that people outside of our circles don't really see that way. He is this very strange fringe figure on the internet, and if you take the United Kingdom, he is mainly known for saying to an MP that he wouldn't even rape her. So that is his big claim to fame. The anti-feminism and all of that is a sideshow. And I dare to say that there was a lot of pressure on him for quite some time, where people would just try to associate him with the alt-right and push him into the same camp. And he just lost the nerve. He couldn't deal with that. So the only thing that he could do was the one thing that he told Crowd NT not to do. Well, which was to attack the alt-right.
Yes, I think you're right here. Probably many people outside of the bubble of YouTube thought that he was alt-right, and in order to get this label off him, he chose to make the alt-right his enemy.
Yes, yeah, that's essentially how I see it.
But I think maybe there's another reason too, because now that he's officially declared himself an enemy of the alt-right, of these evil people, I am sure that there's no way that YouTube will ever delete any of his videos, demonetize it, put it in limited state, or strike it, because he in some way he is now an ally of them.
Yeah, he is a useful gatekeeper to some extent, but there is going to come the point where they will not value him anymore as an ally. They will just view him again as this nuisance and start to flag his videos and maybe even take his channel down for good. Wouldn't be surprised if that happens in the next years.
Yes, once they get rid of us, then probably his turn will come too.
Yeah, that's a pretty certain thing. But what I find so interesting is how rushed it was. How he just stormed into this "I'm now against you guys" thing that he started with the alt-right. That was a little bit surprising to me, because he was always this this guy that preferred to stay a little bit further back, to just make some jokes at people, to not really commit, not really stand for anything. He was more into deconstructionism than actually building something. And I see it that way, that he rushed it so hard that the alt-right essentially bullied him into breaking his normal tune to build something. And yeah, what we got was this liberalistism abortion that he came up with.
I remember about a couple of months ago, he was on a stream, and he called the alt-right a bunch of white, the N-word. I cannot say it.
Yes.
And what is funny is that he could say this word openly. He did not get a strike. The video was not put in limited state or deleted, nothing. But I took the clip of him saying this word and I uploaded it on my channel. And guess what happened?
Yeah, it was taken down. I
got a strike.
Yeah, that was basically what happened to everybody that made a meme about his whole thing, about his N-word screaming, and later on there was this mock video about liberalist blood for liberalist soil and all of that stuff, where they photoshopped him in with some more National Socialist messages. Let's just call it that. And there was this tendency with a lot of people that criticized him and his group to get their videos deleted or flagged. So all of a sudden, these fighters for free speech and liberal freedoms and the right sort of progress had an issue with all of that. It's really funny how this happens.
Yes, so I wonder, these videos, like my video, which got a strike for hate speech, was it YouTube that went after us, or was it some liberalist strike team that mass flagged all the videos?
Personally, I would say it was the second one. I mean, this is something that I predicted about, was it 2 years ago, I think, where I just said that as soon as YouTube brings in all of these tools for more moderation and more silencing, that it would end, on one hand, it would become the wet dream of every troll, but they could just abuse it to their liking. And on the other hand, everybody is suddenly able to just flag everybody for the simplest excuse. And I guess that is what happened there.
So we are actually, not all of us, but some of us, creators and users, we are using the tools of YouTube in order to do their job. It's funny, and at the same time we are fighting for free speech. It's ironic.
Yeah.
But
that's basically the whole skeptics story, I would say. One big irony.
Yes, one big bubble that I hope one day will explode and people will see the truth behind it, because there are many people involved in this bubble. Now, what comes...
Everybody that counts has already seen that they have basically collapsed on their own bullshit. And the people that are still in those circles, they are just there for the entertainment. They want their daily shot of anti-feminist cringe compilations and all of that stuff. They don't really care that much about politics or about what is going on in the real world. They don't really care that much about if things get worse for them. It's just that they are fond of this sort of entertainment.
So now that we mentioned the king of the skeptics and the liberalists, I remember that recently he was part of a campaign about free speech in the UK, where they had an event which was promoted by him, Tommy Robinson, Lawrence Southern. Who else am I missing?
Then we had Brittany Pettibone,
yes.
Martin Sellner, Milo Yiannopoulos. Who was there else?
That guy with Nazi pug.
Oh yeah, Count Dankula.
Yes.
Right.
So a lot of freedom fighters. And
yeah, but it didn't really turn out to be all that much for freedom, except trannies singing songs and some vague stuff said. There wasn't really much beyond that.
It was a little disappointing, the result. I didn't expect much, but when I saw that half of the event was a tranny singing,
yeah, that already tells you what you're in for.
Yes, and well, as I said, I didn't expect something very useful from this group, but I was disappointed, but because I didn't expect them to do something so
empty.
Yes, useless. So they destroyed their own event with their own hands.
Yeah, that describes it well. I mean, I had some conversations about this on Twitter the days before it started, where I just said it is a load of vague gesturing. There are no specific laws targeted that they want to change or remove or implement, which should be something that they might be interested in. And as far as I can tell, and this was before the event, I just said it's basically eCeleb fan service, and that's what it was. Because there was either a complete blackout on the event when it came to the mainstream media, or it was called far right and smeared and completely, contorted to something that it wasn't. So you had basically the few people that attended, the people that cared and that were already in those circles, but beyond that nothing happened. Nothing is going to happen.
And I was disappointed when I saw that Martin Sellner was part of this event, because I actually like the work he's doing with his organization.
Yeah, same here. Trust me, same here.
So I wanted to ask you about this, because he's from Austria, you're from Austria too, and I was a fan of his work, and when I saw that he would be together with these people, it was a surprise for me.
Not so much for me. I was aware that he was on good terms with people like Lauren Southern, and even met Sargon once in the US during a YouTuber event, as far as I remember. So he knows these people. He tends to have at least a certain amount of contact with them. And since Brittany Battybone ended up being his girlfriend, he has the wonderful influence of Lauren Southern around, and that's a really bad thing.
Yes. This ex-Rebel Media employees seem to be everywhere, and they seem to, after they left Rebel Media, so Lauren Southern, Faith Colty, Tommy Robertson, and Kaylan, how's his name?
Robertson?
Kaylan Robertson, yes. These four people, they were working for Rebel Media, and now they seem to work together again in some ways.
Yes, of course, they have their network, but as far as I've seen, they don't really do much else than make a lot of noise and get nothing done. I mean, it's not really surprising in the case of Lauren Southern, because everybody who knows her work is aware that she basically, just like Milo Yiannopoulos, piggybacks on to a certain issue, writes it for a while, gets a little bit of cash out of it, and then hops off again. And right now it's identity politics, nationalism, and white identity that she's on.
Yes, and Milo Yiannopoulos, I think, was also working for a while for Rebel Media.
Yeah, I don't know the exact contract, if he was an actual employee, but they had connections, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember when Rebel Media first appeared, I was subscribed, and I remember when Lauren was working there, in some of her videos, Milo was co-hosting. So this was, I think, a journalism school for many people in order to start their career. And although all these people, they do some useful work showing, presenting some of the problems, what disappoints me is that they show only one side of the problem. They don't show all the problems. They try to hide a few of the problems, and they never speak about the origin, the reason of these problems.
Exactly. They want to keep it in a framework that is actually, to a certain extent, economically viable. They want to be edgy, they want to be in the danger zone, but without actually being in danger. And yeah, the actual danger is, of course, when you go to the origin of all of those issues. When you talk about certain groups or about certain organizations and what they do, that's something that they will never talk about and never really go into. For the simple reason that it would essentially destroy their brand. It would make what they do impossible to continue. That's at least how I see it.
Yes, they try to walk on a thin line. And actually, I saw today on Twitter, Faith Goldie said that she was kicked off Patreon.
Yeah, but Faith Goldie, however much negative stuff you might say about her personally, she's probably the one that dares to go out the most. I remember when she was on this Daily Stormer-related hangout with Asmodor after Charlottesville, and that got her a lot of flack, and I believe she was disinvited from some free speech event, ironically.
Yes, she was. After that, she was supposed to host an event with Jordan Peterson and some of his co-workers, friends, and they decided they changed the host and.
Yes, Gat said he was also.
Yes, Jordan Peterson, Gus Sad, and another psychologist, I think. Because she went on this podcast.
Wait, the psychologist, was that Christina Hoff Summers, or
no,
am I wrong?
No, it was Peterson, Gus Sad, and another a co-worker of Peterson, a psychologist, a man with a beard. I don't know his name.
Okay, but it wasn't Sam Harris, right?
No. I know Sam Harris. No, it wasn't Sam Harris. No.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think Faith Goldie is walking, compared to the other people that we mentioned, the other ex-Rebel Media employees, she's trying to walk more close to the truth, and this is burning her.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, it is a dangerous divide for these guys. I can somewhat relate to them, at least how they feel, because especially guys like Gavin McInnes, they have quite an expensive lifestyle, let's call it that. And they need to be out there. They need to be in the spotlight. They need to get the attention, because otherwise they just don't get the money. And in many cases, I guess they couldn't really find another job that pays the same.
Yes.
So they are basically caught between the powers that be, and us. Both sides nag them.
So another thing that I wanted to ask you is about the situation and the problems in Austria, because we cannot learn this stuff from the mainstream media, but now that we have someone from Austria here, I'd like you to tell us a little about your country. What problems do you have? What's going on now in Austria?
We have basically the same situation as 2 or 3 years ago. So there are still lots of migrants, people that are there for the handouts and nothing else. And with them you have all of the same issues that you have everywhere else: crime, sexual attacks, all of those nice little issues. And although we have now a center-right government, things are only improving very slowly on that front. And that basically brings us to the next problem, which is the government itself. Because, yeah, as mentioned, they are just center-right, and they have to work within the framework of the European Union and, yeah, the Austrian constitution, basically. So they are unable to really take hard measures, and besides that, they have the same, influences pushing down on them that every other government has. For example, we have now this funny little situation where a trade agreement with Canada, free trade agreement with the EU and Canada, is essentially pushed through, CETA. And it was the FPÖ, the Freedom Party, that opposed this as an opposition party and is now pushing it through as well. And it still has to go through the parliament, and there's still the option that there will be a direct poll with the people, but they can actually vote on it. But right now it's really funny to see them squirming around, and I just assume that they got the same usual amount of pressure and maybe a little bit of gifts and money to make things go smoother.
So, do you have any far-right political parties in Austria?
There is essentially nothing right to the Freedom Party, at least nothing that is worth mentioning. There are some smaller organizations that are dedicated, but just completely beyond gaining power or having any significant influence. And the only thing that is more to the right and actually more willing to talk about many of those issues, like population replacement and migrant crimes, is the identitarian movement of Martin Sellner. So they essentially took on the role of the big bad guys out there in the woods. And you know how moderate they are.
Yes. They are towards the right direction, but it's true that they are very moderate. So, when we talk about this stuff, I envy the people in Hungary. They have Viktor Orban, and
tell me about it.
I love this guy. I don't know why, but I think we should clone him.
Yeah, Orban has his he has his little problems, but if you take just a casual look at Europe, the politicians that it has, he's what I want for Austria.
Yes, really. So I'm talking, so compared to the ones we have in power, Orban would be, someone like Orban would be a huge improvement to the right direction.
Oh yes. I mean, it already says a lot what he did as soon as he had the possibility to do it, which was to change the Hungarian constitution and make it explicitly Christian and Hungarian. So there was no progressive pussyfooting around to make it more suitable to European Union conformists. He just went straight up the nationalist road, and I really wish we had other people like that in Europe.
Yes, it's sad. It's sad that in most countries we don't even have people like that as an option when we go to vote.
And even if you do, you have things like, let's take Austria and Germany as an example. You have the Freedom Party, the FPÖ, and the Alternative für Deutschland, AfD. And they are your prime examples of, I wouldn't say fake opposition, but basically a waste of time. The Freedom Party itself, they have a course for at least 10 years where they try to get more to the middle of society, to really get away from more right-wing tendencies. And that is something that you see right now in the government, where they just become more and more neoliberal instead of actually chasing after their nationalist goals that won them the election. And with the AfD in Germany, it's even worse, because there you have an ex-Goldman Sachs banker, a lesbian as well, that lives in Switzerland with her Asian wife and adopted children. Very nationalistic, very German.
I didn't know about that.
No, Alice Weidel, just look it up.
I've read somewhere that the AfD is how can I say?
The AfD is the prime example of controlled opposition. I personally don't trust them even a little bit. They are Goldman Sachs pro-Zionism hardcore shills of the worst kind.
This is the word that I didn't want to say. And I was trying to find a way to say it without saying it. But yes, the AfD and Geert Wilders in Netherlands too.
Oh yes, yes.
And I think also Marie Le Pen.
To an extent, she has backpedaled from that a little bit.
That's good. So it's a pattern that I've seen in many countries, that we have political parties on the right that are saying the things that we believe also that are true, but at the same time they are working together with the root of the problem.
Yes. I mean, in many cases it is out of a certain rationale, because a lot of these people, at least the few people in the Freedom Party that I personally know and that I have talked to, they don't really have those stands out of love for these people. They have those stands because they understand that there is no other way for them. That with the guilt culture after the Second World War, they cannot go all out into nationalist territory without having certain things thrown at them. So the only rational thing for them to do is to basically cozy up to those forces.
So in order to be a nationalist in Europe, you must be a friend of Bibi Netanyahu.
Yes, yeah, that sums it up.
Yeah. You must have his blessings.
If you go outside of that, you will have a very hard time. And you can be sure that you will never get even close to power.
Yes.
And that is something that the Freedom Party in Austria learned the hard way.
Yes, and unfortunately that's a sad truth, that some subjects are forbidden even to think about them.
Yeah, that's true. And even if you are in, not that deep waters, you have a huge problem around. I guess you are aware of the identitarian movement and the latest persecution by the Austrian government.
Yes, I've read about it. They raided the homes of Martin Sellner, I think, and other members, and they froze their bank accounts.
Yeah, as far as I could keep it in my mind, it was the top 10 or 15 people in the movement who got their homes raided.
Wow.
Then there were two buildings where they regularly have meetups, and there was another building of Phalanx Europe, which is a clothing line that they have nearby. So with a lot of funny stuff like still not loving Antifa t-shirts. That's basically what they sell. And they had all of their bank accounts frozen. So the funny thing in that regard is that it was basically only one guy that started all of this, a persecutor in Graz.
Oh. So it's one guy that's on a mission to destroy them.
Yes. I mean, there are already some forces within certain parts of the government that want them gone. They are mostly very close to the Social Democrats. And they have made some special laws and legislations that were officially against the mafia or criminal organizations. And yeah, unofficially they are to take out people that are a little bit uncomfortable for the system itself.
Yes, this seems to be a trend in many European countries.
Yes. Yeah, but there is a bright side to the whole thing. And this is something that the Freedom Party, of course, completely denies, but thankfully they are cleaning out the Ministry of Interior and also the Internal Secret Service. There was a little bit of a blowout a few months ago, where they had some corruption scandals there and basically cleaned out the Social Democrats. So for all the good and the bad, yeah, the internal security apparatus is now in the hands of quote-unquote right-wingers. Make of that what you want.
That's good, but we see that there are people being prosecuted in Austria, in Germany, and in the UK. So, and this is started happening only recently. So 10 or 20 years ago, this didn't exist.
I cannot completely agree with that, because it did exist. There was already, there were already certain, how shall I say, forces that went after people for all of those issues. It did exist, but not to the extent that we have now. It's essentially the clown world that you have, where, they arrest 89-year-old women or dig up some old concentration camp guards that is completely senile and cannot even speak a coherent sentence, and put him in front of a jury and say, this is a war criminal. Now put him in into jail for, I don't know, the half year that he has left. I mean, this is new, yes. This is definitely new, and it has intensified.
So I want to let the people in the chat know that if they want to send a question or a message and at the same time support this channel, they can use Streamlabs, which uses PayPal, and we will see their question on the screen. Now, what did you want to say? Sorry.
I basically just wanted to say that it is not all that one-sided as people think. You have people within the government apparatus that are out for nationalists and right-wingers and want to shut them down in every way possible. But on the other hand, you have people that are, let's say, a little bit further to the right, or at least conservatives, that oppose this. And they are doing a lot of work that many in our circles don't appreciate.
You mean there are people in the Austrian government that are...
Yes.
That's good. That's hopeful, because I don't see this happening in other countries. So maybe Austria is slowly getting out of this darkness and is waking up.
There was just, as far as I remember, last week was a meeting between our Chancellor, Sebastian Kurz, and the Czech president, as far as I remember, where they had some talks about Austria getting closer to the Visegrad countries, which is, of course, something that I'm very happy about, because, that's exactly where I want Austria to be, closer to those countries.
So this coalition, which is basically Czech Republic, Hungary,
Slovakia and Poland.
Slovakia and Poland. Yes, I think these countries are starting, the people and the governments in these countries have started realizing the threat, and they are starting to take measures. While, and this is, let's say, it's on East Europe, while on the west side of Europe, I think they have lost. They have almost lost the battle. So Britain.
In many countries and in many areas, they definitely have. There are some local areas in Italy, France, Spain that are doing quite well. But yeah, England is probably the worst example. UK is, at least when it comes to laws and capabilities to even do something against what is happening, it's too far gone.
Yes, I don't know if they can even reverse the situation there.
The main problem that we have is that this whole multiculturalism thing, this mass importations of non-Europeans into Europe, it essentially created Yugoslavia 2.0, only on a bigger scale. And this is the one thing that is really unpleasant for me to think about, because as soon as the system isn't able to contain all of those problems, it will basically have the same effect that we had with Yugoslavia when Marshal Tito died. He was basically the one thing that kept all of it together, and I assume as soon as the European Union and all the higher ups there are not able to control things any longer, or at least throw money at the problem, that will be a very unpleasant situation. That's just as much as I'm about to go into say here.
Well, I cannot speak negative about multiculturalism because it is our biggest strength. But how can we stop this beautiful wave of multiculturalism? And if we manage to stop it, how is it possible to reverse what has happened? Can we deport multiculturalism at this point?
In my opinion, yes, we can. And there will even be points up to 10 years and 20 years where we will be able to do that. The main issue is just that you need to get people, let's just say, into a sort of mindset where they understand what is going on. That's the most important issue. Because you always see this with voting patterns, where you have loads of Europeans voting for left-leaning parties and for the continuation of this policy. And it is simply the atomization of people of European descent that makes the most damage. So the main point, at least in my opinion, is that multiculturalism cannot be sustained without people really pushing for it, really having legislations and laws that really keep it going. Without money and support, it will basically go down on itself. It's simply not a sustainable system. And that's the negative point. As long as we have a system in place that can throw money and legislation on it to keep it going, the only chance that we have is to, as sad as it is, vote for at least somewhat right-leaning parties and hope that they do a good job until we can finally change enough people's minds. In the countries where we cannot do it, there it will probably end up in civil war, to be honest.
Or maybe we can hope that a European economic collapse happens, at least that the social support, the benefit system collapses, because if I think that if in one country they wouldn't be able anymore to pay all these benefits to all these people that aren't working and aren't able to work and will never be able to work and support themselves. So if the money supply stopped, then many would leave Europe.
Yeah, but that's where the problem comes in. Because even if the money supply stops, even if everything collapses, there will still be a little bit of a remnants of power. And you will have the same people that we have now clutching onto this power. And they will try to keep everything going as long as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. You basically have the same thing with the German Democratic Republic, with East Germany. The country was completely economically inefficient, had lots of issues, but despite all of that, it kept running for 20 years. So that is basically the same thing that I see happening with the European Union. It's a failed system. It can only fail. It is not sustainable. And despite all of that, it will keep going and it will drag people down with it. And especially when all of these people suddenly don't have their support and social welfare coming in, that will be a critical point. Because there will be no organization and there will be no level of government that can even transport or deport all of these people. And there will be no real intention to do so for them. Most of them will just think pragmatically along the lines of, we are already here. It's not all that much of a bad place. Might as well take some land. And you will have situations that are very reminiscent to what happened to the Roman Empire, where they will just conquer their own territory and hold it.
So maybe we will see small independent caliphates being created.
Yes, that's very likely. We will probably have a divide between Arabs and Turks. The Turks more to the east in the Netherlands, Germany, and parts of Austria. And the Arabs mostly in France. And England had its own little share of problems. And I am certain that many of these people are going to stay. And as soon as things really collapse, without us being capable of having remigration programs to get them out of Europe, it will basically end up being a very bloody and unpleasant mess. A second Reconquista, you could say.
Now that you mentioned programs, I remember yesterday a news article that I presented on yesterday's stream. They started a very smart and beautiful program in Germany where they are...
I guess the truck drivers?
Yes.
Oh, gosh, yes. I was afraid that this would come up.
I couldn't believe... When I first read it, I thought it was satire.
We are so deep in clown world, satire doesn't even break it anymore. But I had a reaction on Twitter along the lines of, I'm really happy that my family lives on the countryside and that they are gun owners. But I feel sorry for the urbanites.
Yes, the Germans seem to... I cannot understand them. I cannot understand them, how they keep voting for Merkel so many times.
It's the psychosis, the indoctrination, all of it. I guess it's really hard to understand for non-Germans how it is. I mean, do you remember that case with Maria Ladenburger? This girl that was raped and drowned to death by an underage refugee, quote unquote. And her father
yes.
started,
Yes.
he started collecting money for migrants after this.
This story started a few months earlier in Greece. This guy was an illegal migrant in Greece, and he threw a Greek girl, he threw her off a cliff, and she was in coma for many months.
Yes.
And they arrested him. He went to prison, and after a couple of months they released him. Now why they didn't release just him, they released almost everyone, because this
usual Greek problems. This is really something that boggles the mind, how Greece even functions with all of these issues.
Well, it was until January 2015 we had a right-wing government who was controlling the migrant problem, but
yes.
My idiot neighbors here in Greece voted for a communist government.
Wasn't that Syriza party, or how are they called?
Yes, Syriza. It's the radical left, but actually they are all they were in the Greek Communist Party, and a few years ago they left the Communist Party and they created their own Communist Party, and they named it Radical Left. And they managed to become the government. And when they became the government, the first thing they did is they opened the borders.
Oh yeah, I remember that. There were even articles in newspapers, especially in Germany, where they were celebrated for doing so. How progressive and open-hearted and wonderful this new Greek government.
Yes. I have friends that are working in the Greek Coast Guard.
Yes.
And they have told me that before, with the previous government, they had orders, unofficial orders, to treat migrants in a very rough way in order to discourage more to come into Greece. And they were doing this. They were catching them. They were treating them rough, and they were pushing them back to Turkey. And this was effective. But when the new government came, then a new order came, and this was an official order, and the order was find them and help them to reach Greece.
Yeah.
So it was the new official policy since February 2015, and this is what caused a few millions of illegal migrants entering Greece, and at the same time Mama Merkel was signaling to them, you can come here, we want you, we love you. So it was a joint effort from our Prime Minister and the Chancellor to flood Europe with illegals. And so what I was saying earlier, this guy that did this thing who killed this girl in Germany, he was in jail, but this new communist government, as soon as they went into power, they opened the jail cells and let almost everyone out.
Wonderful.
Yes, and so he left Greece, he went to Germany, and he killed this poor girl.
Yeah, nobody could have expected that. I mean, that is really something that let's just take the example of the Coast Guard in Greece or the police here in Austria. I have enough friends that work in the police, and oh boy, are they frustrated. Trust me on that. When you have official orders to treat people that you would just like, and I'm quoting my friends here, that he would just like to take a rope and hang them to the next trees because they are really the worst sort of people imaginable. And you have to give them the same rights as an Austrian citizen, or you will be fired. So you have to imagine that. Especially, these are people that wouldn't find a job that easy. They cannot just leave the police, especially when they have families and kids. So it's really a devil's contract, so to speak.
Yes, they don't have many options. It's the same thing is happening with the police here in Greece. Most of the people working in the police force are voting for the Golden Dawn, which is a far-right political party here in Greece. But with a communist government, they don't have many options. They have to obey to orders.
It was the same thing with the Austrian police and especially the Austrian military for years, especially with the old social democratic government, where they had a shared coalition with the conservatives. The basic layer of both organizations, of the police and the army, they were completely for the Freedom Party. So it was rather unusual to find somebody in there that was not quote-unquote right-wing.
So I don't know how much time you have. Can we touch another couple of subjects?
Yeah, of course.
So one subject that we didn't touch is what's happening in the US. So the alt-right movement there, the nationalists, the election of Trump and what Trump is now doing. So and Charlottesville also. So
oh yes.
And because I've seen you have done videos about these subjects, about the alt-right, Charlottesville, Trump. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the movement in the US.
Okay, so should we just start off with the movement itself, or?
Yes, let's start from the movement. How do you see the movement in the US and the leaders that they have?
I see them in a very bad state right now, but that is mostly to do with the fact that they don't have a plan. That is something that I also see with people in Europe that are in alt-right circles. They don't really seem to have a plan beyond making noise and hoping that people hear them. It is this, if we just wake up enough people, we will get things done, and it requires a little bit more than that. And the US is the worst example for it. Where you have, let's take Richard Spencer as an example. He just does meta-politics. That is all that he ever did, and you have to give it to him. He does it well, but there are a lot of people that really seem to think that he is the guy that is going to start a real political movement, and of course he isn't. That is not really the type of guy that he is. And on the other hand, what is going on with the American alt-right right now is actually a really good thing. It sorts out the low-quality people, I would say. I guess you remember the Dread Worker Party and how they, completely shambled a few months back.
No, I don't know about which party is that.
The Traditionalist Workers' Party, Matthew Heimbach's people.
Matthew Heimbach. Yes. I remember.
The Trailer Park Boy memes were really good, I have to say.
When I hear a new name, I always start Googling and searching. And I remember when I first saw Matthew Heimbach and I Googled him, the first thing that I found was one video of him praising Israel. It was the first result, and
okay, you have to say he has a long journey behind him.
Yes, but okay, this guy, just by looking at him, my first impression was I was disappointed. I couldn't understand how people were actually following him.
Yeah, the thing that he had going for him was that he could talk. And this is something that you just have to watch one of his videos where he gives a little speech. The man can talk. He really can do it. And he can convince people, but he himself and leadership qualities, personal human qualities, yeah, that's rather lacking, to be honest. But that seems to be something, especially in American National Socialist circles, it's rather far spread. You have a lot of bad apples and a few people that are high quality, but they are just pressed down by the rest of them.
Yes, and now I want to add about Richard Spencer that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I always hear him speaking about his imaginary ethno-state and how he will create this new state. And personally, I don't find this realistic, his plan. And I wonder, what's your opinion? Do you see the US, the people in the US, going into being able to create a separate country within a country?
In my opinion, not in our timeline. I find it a little bit unlikely that the United States will just collapse within a short time. It will probably not happen in our lifetimes. So the main viewpoints of Richard Spencer when it comes to the ethno-state, they are completely unrealistic. It's just completely beyond it. What is practical in the US would be to really get into local politics, especially on the federal level, and yeah, have your legislations, and yes, even underhandedly have white nationalist organizations where you actually do a little bit of demographic change, where you just make sure that you get a lot of white people in a certain area to make it more controllable, let's say it that way. And yeah, there comes the next problem, because on a state level, there's already enough power and enough incidents where they could just simply shut that down. So it was really, would be an uphill battle, but probably the most useful thing that they could do.
Yes, and I've also heard people talking about ethno-states in Canada. And I heard it was a stream from JF.
Yeah.
And he was talking about creating an ethno-state in Canada, but an ethno-state for the French-speaking Canadians. So,
okay, people will not like what I have to say now, but the Quebecois, the French Canadians, they are too far gone. They are so incredibly progressive and liberal. They have their natural dislike towards the English Canadians, the Anglo Canadians, and that is basically the only positive identity that they have left. The Catholicism isn't there anymore. Their connection to France on a, let's just say, on a cultural level isn't really there anymore. There's just the language, and they have basically gone too far. So you may have a few people that are, let's say, far enough to understand what is going on, and they have ideas how they can work against it, like JF, for example. But especially the French Canadians, they are the last people that I expect to get anything of those sorts done.
Yes, I don't know much about Canada. Basically, I know about their prime minister, and oh, I've seen.
That we all know.
Yes, I know hundreds of memes about him. I know about Jordan Peterson, but I don't know actually much about Canada. But
I actually have family in Canada and in Australia as well, so I know a little bit about both countries. And trust me when I say that, yeah, it really hits me when I see how Canada is going down the drain. It really does.
I'm more optimistic about Australia.
Oh yeah, me too.
Than about Canada. But what I wanted to mention is that, okay, I understand they have some problems similar to our problems with this wave of multiculturalism. What I don't understand is that the division between French-speaking and English-speaking Canadians.
Yeah, that goes really back to the 7 Years' War, where you had the great European powers facing off against each other. You could essentially say it was the First World War because there was fighting in Africa, in India, in Europe, and in Northern America as well, and in the Caribbean. But at the end of it, the British conquered the French colony in Quebec and integrated it into their colonial possessions. And many of the French-speaking settlers there, they stayed under British rule. So there has always been this divide between the Anglo-Canadians and the French-Canadians.
So it's an historical divide.
Yes.
And now that you mentioned Africa, the last subject that I wanted to discuss with you is the situation that Afrikaners are facing in South Africa today, and the similarities with what happened in Rhodesia,
yes,
which became Zimbabwe. What are your thoughts about what is happening today in South Africa compared to what happened to Rhodesia?
What is happening to South Africa is, in a certain sense, even worse what happened with Rhodesia, because there is not even a country where the Afrikaners could really go to. They are essentially captives in their own nation, or at least what was their nation once. Because on one hand they have the ANC and an even more radical black party that despises them, hates them, but somehow depends on them to keep the country running. And on the other hand, they have the international community that is completely brainwashed into viewing South Africans and apartheid as sort of, the eternal sin that these people have to be punished for. So where the Rhodesians had the chance to actually just leave and resettle in South Africa, or many of them went to Australia and America, some of them to England as well, that is something that the remaining whites in South Africa don't really have as an option. Especially the ones that have a very low income, and there are lots of those.
Yes, I've seen reports about many white South Africans living in terrible conditions. And I've also read that many European countries, as well as the US, Canada, Australia, they don't accept them as refugees. They accept refugees from the Middle East, from Asia, from other parts of Africa. But these people, they don't get refugee status.
Yeah, that is really the irony of the whole situation, where you have loads of Africans in countries that are relatively stable, where they don't have to fear that much, except, yeah, living in an African country, ruled by Africans. They don't really face the same issues that white South Africans face. When you just take a look at the murder rates and overall the targeted murders of whites in South Africa, every reasonable person would normally say, okay, we take these people in. They are a persecuted minority. These are the prime example for what a refugee should be. And yeah, thankfully, props to Australia, they are doing a little bit of that now.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's good news.
Yeah, they were called evil racists for taking in white South Africans. So that was actually something that the Australian government got a little bit of flack for, especially from the ANC, the ruling party in South Africa, because how can you side with those evil racists to let them flee? It's a really insane world.
Yes, and actually these people are, their ancestors came there almost 400 years ago.
Yes.
And when they came there, there weren't many locals.
Yes, and especially not the sorts of locals that are there now.
Yes, the locals that are there now came later.
Yeah.
So they are actually the invaders.
Yeah, of course. So much to ancestral claims, but yeah. You really, you see it with Zimbabwe. I believe it was even Mr. Metoker that pinned together some of the news articles on Twitter, where he had this, the one starting in, I believe, 2010, where Mugabe was like, we finally have to throw out all the whites from Zimbabwe, and then it really went down. Mugabe begs white farmers to come back. Zimbabwe faces extreme starvation and begs for international support, and it went on and on like this. And that is very much what is going to happen with South Africa as soon as there are not enough whites around to keep the whole thing going.
Yes,
That's as a little side note, because that's a prediction that I dare to make. As soon as the whites are gone or are not there in sufficient numbers anymore, you will have the Indians take over. And they will find themselves to be the new hated minority and get the same treatment eventually.
So you think the Indians are interested in...
Oh, they are already there.
There's
There's a huge Indian minority in South Africa. You have the, how they call it, I believe the Gupta family. They are very influential there, an Indian business family. They are basically the corrupt best buddies of the ANC up to a certain point, until they wanted to get rid of Jacob Zuma. And yeah, there are loads of stories behind that.
And I think that there is also a big Jewish community in South Africa.
Not really that big, to be honest. There are a few connections, and yeah, there's a small diaspora there. And during the time of apartheid, South Africa had some close connections to Israel, especially when it came to arms deals and other issues. and their nuclear program. So they had a lot of interaction there, and some Israelis even settled there. But it's not that many people as many seem to think. It's actually a really small group of people.
So I think we covered all the subjects that I wanted to interrogate you about.
Good to hear.
Yes, I don't know. Is there anything else that you want to touch? Is there a subject that we missed?
Oh, there are many, but I don't think that we have the time for that anymore. We would probably get lost and would have to end eventually somewhere.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed it.
Oh, trust me, I did. Very good conversation.
It was a pleasure for me and an honor. I want to thank you very much for joining my stream. Also,
thank you for having me on as well.
I want to let the people that are watching us know all the links to all your social media accounts, YouTube, Twitter, BitSoup. They are in the description of the video. They should check them out. They should subscribe. As I said at the beginning, I'm a fan of your work from before I started releasing videos.
Oh, thank you. That's nice to hear.
So
I hope it wasn't too much bad influence.
No. Your work is inspiring, and I really like the clips that you make with where you take a song and you make like a video clip about it.
Yeah, that's basically the main thing that I do on the channel. But yeah, people ask me to do some talking videos as well, and that's basically only an extension.
So people should check out your channel. Thank you for coming. I hope we can do this again.
Would be my pleasure.
Great. So I will end the stream here, and I want to thank everyone that watched. I want to thank the people in the chat. Sorry that I couldn't follow the chat because I had to concentrate on our talk.
Oh, by the way, because you mentioned it before, some questions from the chat. Maybe if people have something important that they still want to ask, we could get to that quick.
Yes. So let's take a look. Are there any questions? Now is the good time to ask them.
Show us something, guys.
Well, there is some delay, but I don't see any questions.
All right. So at least they are satisfied.
Yes, I think we covered almost. We covered many subjects.
Yeah, we had a lot of them as well. So
Yes.
I'm happy that we got through of them.
We touched almost all continents. We touched Europe, Australia, Africa, North America.
Yeah, I guess, the only thing, South America, that would have been interesting. Some Pinochet memes. But, okay, maybe another time.
Yes. Pinochet is another stream. Now, James Key 3001 asks the political situation in Austria. How is it really? Well, I think we talked about this.
A short recap for him. There's a center-right government. They are not a solution to our problems. They have their fair share of own issues, but they are miles above everything that the political left and the conservatives a few years ago managed to do. So it is a huge improvement if you compare it to that.
So another question from Paula C. Is there hope for mankind?
Yes. Don't take the black pill. Just don't take the black pill, my friend.
Of course there's hope. We are the majority.
This is really going to be a struggle that will go on for generations. And we are just building a foundation now. This is something that our children and our children's children will have to fight out, and they will do well.
And a question from Sifu 2060. Does Cato see Austria voting their way out of trouble like Poland and Hungary?
Yes, to an extent I actually see that. I believe that we will not really leave the EU completely. There's simply too much propagandistic and economical impact on us. But as I mentioned before, there is a little bit of getting closer to the Visegrad countries. And the more Eastern European and Middle European countries that can actually build this alliance and expand it, the better. So we will see what the future brings, but we are definitely voting ourselves out of a lot of issues right now.
So a question from AlphaGo. What is the tribe like in Austria? Now, before you answer, be careful about your answer. I don't want a strike.
I will be very careful and kind to them. So they are basically like in Germany, a little bit less, let's say, nasty, especially when it comes to the guilt tripping. Of course, every time you hear from them, it's always connected to the Holocaust and the eternal guilt that we have, as Austrians have as Hitler's accomplices. It is really not that much different than in Germany.
Yes. Now all the questions are coming in now.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, we take a few of them. I still have time.
Yes. So, what Ober of Acorns, he's from Germany, is asking, what do you think of genetic engineering? Will it replace us, the white race?
No. Genetic engineering, especially the post-humanism stuff that is out there, that is going to be something for the elites, and you can be sure that this will take a long time until it is really functionable. This is something that cannot really be created in a few decades. Especially the human genome, that's something very complicated. And to just have a few hacks here and there and to change a little bit might end very badly for the people that attempt it.
James is asking, what is the economic impact of the EU on Austria?
The impact of the EU on Austria is enormous because we basically have an integration since the 1990s. We joined in 1999. And we are basically completely dependent on the inner European market. So if we would leave the EU, there would be an economical shock for Austria because we would have to completely rebuild the internal industry and food production. And yeah, then there would be the problems with imports and exports to EU members. So it would be very harmful to Austria.
Yes, and I think most European countries have the same problem. After being so many years within the EU, the way that each of our economies is shaped now, it is difficult to get out, especially for us that have the same currency, the euro.
Yes.
This is a very big...
It's not even really the currency, because you can get beyond that. For especially Southern Europe, let's take Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece. For them, it is the issue that they don't really have that much economical strength to suddenly sustain themselves on their own, especially with the needs of the populations there.
Yes, but especially for Greece, where I know a few things more, our economy has also changed a lot during these decades that we are in the European Union. So, for example, 30 years ago, we were producing 100% of the meat we were consuming. And now most of our meat is imported. And the same thing is for many other, especially agricultural products, because the European Union tried and managed to change the things that each country produces. So by giving
it is the entire transport industry within the EU that also hangs in there. And it is, I would say, economical dependence on the system itself. It's like with the Soviets and the Warsaw Pact countries, where they had a country that was completely there for producing tractors or tanks or something else, and certain industrial products that other countries couldn't produce. So there was already that issue to keep them dependent on the system, and that is basically what we have in the EU.
Now, AlphaGo is asking, is Wien safe?
Depends on the part of Vienna. Especially around the train stations and certain areas of the town, no, it's not.
I was in Graz 3 years ago, and well, it looked safe to me. Graz, I think, was in a very good condition.
Yeah, Graz is funny because it doesn't really have that many immigrants compared to other bigger cities in Austria, and there's a huge student population that votes very much left-wing, so that's a little bit of a funny coincidence. Might change in the future.
Okay, I think we covered enough, and we are now streaming 2 hours. So I will end it here. I want to thank you again for being here. I want to thank the people that watched, and we will do this again sometime, I hope.
Yeah, I hope as well. Thanks again for having me on, and was a pleasure, as I said.
Was a pleasure for me too. Okay. Bye. Bye to everyone in the chat. Bye, Cato. Have a nice...
Goodbye, folks.
Good night.
Good night.